Chapter 42:17. The earlier scene had shocked them. At the same time, they knew that the woman in front of them was not easy to deal with. If they were not careful, they might fail miserably at such an easy task. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Wentao and the other four who had surrounded her. She was secretly calculating in her mind. Earlier on, when Bai Shi had attacked, she had already sensed the strength of Di Wentao and the others. If she had not judged wrongly, Di Wentao should be at the 6th level of the Star Ray realm. The other cultivators were slightly weaker than him, but they were all at the 5th level of the Star Ray realm. After knowing this, Bailey Hongzhuang sighed inwardly. The upper realm was indeed much stronger than the lower realm. In the lower realm, cultivators at the Star Ray realm and above were already very few in number. She did not expect that there were so many cultivators at the Star Ray realm here. Cultivators at the Star Ray realm and above were also many in number here. It was truly terrifying. We had originally decided not to cause trouble. However, trouble just had to come knocking on our door. Xiao He sighed inwardly. As they had just arrived here, they were alone and weak. Hence, they had previously discussed that they had to be careful and avoid causing trouble as much as possible. Who would have thought that after staying here for such a short period of time, something like this would happen? They could not even pass their days peacefully. We have no choice. We can only go all out now. Xiao Bai's eyes were filled with viciousness. Many times, trouble was unavoidable. Even if they could hide for a while, they could not hide forever. Hence, they might as well face it head-on. Master, the other party is very powerful. If we were to fight them head-on, I'm afraid that we are no match for them. Bai Shi reminded. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. I understand. Hence, we can only think of other ways. Right from the beginning, she had not planned to fight them head-on. With such a difference in strength, she would not be a match for them at all. Hence, they had to find other ways. Just as Wang Yanhan was cultivating in the room, there was suddenly a series of hurried knocks on the door. Wang Yanhan, are you there? Open the door. Something big has happened. Wang Yanhan hurriedly opened the door. The moment he opened the door, he saw Yi Haomiao standing outside with an anxious look. What happened? Wang Yanhan frowned and asked. Yi Haomiao grabbed Wang Yanhan's hand and said, It's urgent. Follow me first. I'll tell you as we walk. Although Wang Yanhan was full of doubts, he still walked forward based on his trust in Yi Haomiao. I just heard that Di Wentao was very unconvinced because he was seriously injured by you, so he went to find your little junior sister for revenge. Now that they've been out for a while, if we don't hurry over, something might happen to your little junior sister. Hearing Yi Haomiao's words, Wang Yanhan's face suddenly turned ugly. What? This Di Wentao is so despicable. He has always been like this. Now that he doesn't dare to take the initiative to cause trouble in front of you, he can only think of other ways to make you unhappy. Let's go. Wang Yanhan rushed in the direction of the inn at his fastest speed. He was already very anxious in his heart. If something happened to little junior sister, then he would never be able to forgive himself. Chapter 42:18. Just as Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao were rushing all the way to the inn where Bailey Hongzhuang was staying, they found that a group of people had gathered together on the way, as if they were watching the fun. Just as they were about to pass by, suddenly, a voice from inside attracted their attention. This is my little junior sister's voice. Wang Yanhan's gaze changed and he immediately stopped and walked towards the crowd. Yi Haomiao followed closely behind Wang Yanhan and said, I seem to have heard Di Wentao's voice. Little junior sister. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was thinking about how to escape, she suddenly heard a voice from behind. She couldn't help but turn her head and saw Wang Yanhan and another man that she had never seen before walking over together. However, the same thing was that both of their faces were filled with deep concern. She immediately thought of Yi Haomiao that Wang Yanhan had mentioned to her before. Thinking about it, this person should be him. Senior brother. Wang Yanhan immediately stood beside Bailey Hongzhuang and glared at Di Wentao. Di Wentao, if you have any dissatisfaction, come at me directly. What kind of ability are you to make a move on my junior sister behind my back? Di Wentao and the others obviously didn't expect Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao to come back, and their expressions instantly changed. Originally, it couldn't be easier for them to kill Bailey Hongzhuang. They didn't expect that the other party had 2 more people, and the situation had changed a little. Wang Yanhan, I didn't know that she was your junior sister. Di Wentao's expression was cold, and the words that came out of his mouth were extremely shameless. Hearing that, Wang Yanhan chuckled. If you didn't know that she was my junior sister, then why did you find trouble with her? Since things have already come to this, why do you still have to hide it? I usually find trouble with whoever I want to find trouble with. What does it have to do with you? Look clearly, she killed my contracted beast. Now I want to kill her to avenge my contracted beast. What's wrong with that? Di Wentao's voice was extremely cold. He was simply about to explode from anger. The contract beast that he had painstakingly nurtured for so many years was gone just like that. Even now, he was still unwilling to accept it. Following Di Wentao's words, Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao finally noticed the berserk earth bear's corpse. When they saw him earlier, the 2 of them had some doubts in their hearts. It was only after hearing Di Wentao's affirmation that they were certain. Immediately, they were shocked in their hearts. They knew how much Di Wentao treasured his contract beast, but they didn't expect it to die now. Wang Yanhan couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. His slightly raised eyebrows were obviously asking silently, "Did you really kill him?" He made the first move. Bailey Hongzhuang said, "He wanted this wild earth bear to kill me, but he didn't expect it to be killed by my contract beast instead." After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's affirmative answer, Wang Yanhan's heart skipped a beat. The way he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang changed again. Previously, he only knew that his junior sister's inscription technique was very powerful, but he didn't know that his junior sister's contract beast was also very powerful. To be able to kill the wild earth bear, this combat strength was very shocking. Gulp. Yi Haomiao also swallowed a mouthful of saliva, his expression filled with disbelief. Too terrifying. Not to mention Di Wentao, even he couldn't help but feel heartache for the other party. This kind of loss would probably make people have the impulse to faint. Chapter 42:19. Wang Yanhan, how do you think this matter should be resolved? Di Wentao looked at Wang Yanhan coldly. At this moment, he was already regretting to the extreme. If he had known that there would be such an outcome, he definitely would not have let the wild earth bear take action. With their abilities, it was absolutely not difficult to deal with Bailey Hongzhuang. He only wanted to make use of this opportunity to let Bailey Hongzhuang feel that he was an existence that the other party could not resist at all. He did not expect that such an unforeseen event would occur. Facing Di Wentao's questioning, Wang Yanhan's expression was still calm. Di Wentao, don't think that you can distort the truth just because you have a loss now. My little junior sister is only here alone. As long as you use your brain, you will know that she definitely would not take the initiative to provoke you. It must be you who found trouble, hence my little junior sister's contracted beast took action to teach the wild earth bear a lesson. Di Wentao, don't you often do this kind of thing? Wang Yanhan's words were undoubtedly adding fuel to the fire, yet it was the truth. In Wang Yanhan's hands, Di Wentao indeed often did this kind of thankless thing. Now that the other party mentioned it, he was also incomparably depressed in his heart. Yi Haomiao laughed without giving face. Ever since he taught Di Wentao a lesson a few days ago, Wang Yanhan's personality changed a lot. The current him no longer tolerated Wang Yanhan. On the contrary, he would step on him whenever he could. One had to say that this kind of feeling was indeed quite satisfying. Wang Yanhan, don't think that you can be so arrogant because you won against me the last time. If you can't give me an explanation for this matter today, then we will definitely not be done. Explanation? Bailey Hongzhuang sneered and raised her eyes. What explanation do you want? Unless you die today, otherwise, I will definitely not take this lying down. Di Wentao turned to look at Wang Yanhan and said, Wang Yanhan, I'll leave my words here. You have to think carefully. However, facing Di Wentao's threat, Wang Yanhan did not even consider and directly said, impossible. When these words came out, Di Wentao's face turned black once again. A straightforward rejection undoubtedly made him lose face even more. Di Wentao clenched his teeth, You said it yourself. Today we will fight to the death here and see who will have the last laugh. Hearing that, Wang Yanhan couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. He felt a little guilty too. He didn't want to let these things affect Bailey Hongzhuang, but he didn't expect that in the end he would still bring her into a dispute. He felt very helpless. Looking at Wang Yanhan's expression, Bailey Hongzhuang already understood what he was thinking. She immediately said, "Senior, don't worry. Let's fight." When it came to fighting, Bailey Hongzhuang had never been afraid. Previously, it was indeed very difficult for her to deal with the 5 people in front of her by herself. However, with the addition of Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao, the situation was different. At the very least, their chances of winning had increased significantly. Little junior sister, they have the advantage in numbers, and you've just arrived in the upper realm. I'm afraid this competition will be, it's all right. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly, indicating to Wang Yanhan that he could rest assured. Just as they were conversing, Di Wentao clearly had no interest in continuing to wait. He immediately said, "Attack!" At his command, Yan Xiangming and the others attacked without hesitation. Chapter 42-20. Seeing the other party's actions, Wang Yanhan, Bailey Hongzhuang, and Yi Haomiao all looked at each other. Hardening their hearts, they immediately went forward. Looking at the current situation, they had no other choice but to fight. Wang Yanhan immediately went to meet Di Wentao. At this moment, he already hated the latter to the extreme. Although he hated Di Wentao before, at least this fellow had always been targeting him alone. That was fine. But now, he even brought all these conflicts to his little junior sister. This was what he couldn't accept the most. Di Wentao was completely taken out by him. If Yi Haomiao didn't happen to know this news and immediately came to inform him, he really couldn't imagine what would have happened if they had arrived late. Once he thought of that possibility, he hated that he couldn't directly kill Di Wentao. Speaking of which, he was still too soft-hearted. He always felt that both sides belonged to the same faction. If he directly killed him, it wouldn't be too appropriate. However, looking at it now, all of this was meaningless. Towards a damned fellow like Di Wentao, he should directly take his life and eliminate all future troubles. Wang Yanhan, today, there should be an end between the two of us. Di Wentao's gaze was gloomy and his voice was even colder. Only he knew how much he hated Wang Yanhan. Originally, he already occupied the position of eldest senior brother. Everyone followed his lead and was extremely respectful. However, it was this fellow from the lower realm who didn't even enter his eyes at the beginning that climbed all the way to where he was now. He even snatched away his position as leader. Now that he thought about it, he really regretted not directly killing this fellow back then. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so troublesome. Wang Yanhan stared coldly at Di Wentao. His voice was icy. Indeed, there should be an end between the two of us. Do you know how loathsome you are? Di Wentao's lips curled into a cold smile. A fellow like you should stay in the lower realm forever. Why are you vainly trying to come to the upper realm? That's my business. You don't need to worry. Ever since I came here, you've been targeting me everywhere. However, after targeting for so long, there's still no result. The reason why you're unhappy with me is that you're afraid of being outdone by me, Wang Yanhan said mockingly. Di Wentao's expression changed when he heard Wang Yanhan's mocking words, and he said in a stern voice, "I'll definitely kill you today and make you disappear from the upper realms. If you had said this in the past, I would have believed you. But now, I'm afraid you no longer have the ability to do so." As Wang Yanhan's voice fell, the two swords collided. Ding ding ding. Sparks flew in all directions as vigorous yuan power violently gushed out. Both of them had a star ray rank 6 cultivation. At this moment, the momentum of their collision was extremely shocking. Bailey Hongzhuang and Yi Haomiao each went up against a cultivator. However, since there were 4 cultivators left, the other 2 also targeted them. The expressions of the 4 of them were very indifferent and proud. Obviously, they had already determined that Bailey Hongzhuang and her companion were no match for them. Chapter 42-21. In the past, Wang Yanhan and Di Wentao were equally matched. Now that Wang Yanhan had the help of inscriptions, it would be more difficult for Di Wentao to deal with him. Hearing that, the other cultivators nodded in agreement. Go ahead, leave this to us. After Yan Xiangming left, there were only 3 cultivators left in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and Yi Haomiao. Miss Bailey. Yi Haomiao looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a serious expression. These 3 people are all in the Starlight Stage 5. I'm afraid it'll be difficult for you to deal with them. Why don't you stay closer to me? If there's any danger, I can take care of you. Bailey Hongzhuang turned her gaze. When she saw the worried expression on Yi Haomiao's face, a smile appeared in her eyes. Thank you, Mr. Yi. I'll be more careful. As she spoke, Bailey Hongzhuang said to Bai Shi, Xiao He, and Xiao Bai, try to hold back one of the cultivators. I'll deal with the other cultivator as soon as possible. You just need to hold them back for a while. Is that okay? The other party was a Starlight Stage 5 cultivator. She had to be more careful. However, if she was only facing one person, she believed that she could end the battle quickly. No problem. The 3 beasts immediately replied. All right. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang went up against another cultivator. At the same time, Yi Haomiao had already started fighting with the other 2 cultivators. From Yi Haomiao's point of view, Bailey Hongzhuang was Wanyan Han's junior sister. She had just arrived in the upper realm and must have just broken through to the Starlight Stage. What's more, Bailey Hongzhuang had been seriously injured before. Although she had recovered now, she had not yet recovered to her previous state. Hence, he had to shoulder the greatest pressure. However, just as he attacked, he was surprised to find that Bailey Hongzhuang's contracted beast had come to help. He was instantly shocked. When he came to his senses, he could not help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. He instantly had a good impression of her. Wanyan Han's junior sister was indeed a very good person. However, not long after, Yi Haomiao did not have the mood to think about this. Because he was shocked to find that Bailey Hongzhuang's contracted beast had broken through to the Starlight Stage. A beast of the Starlight Stage? Yi Haomiao was dumbfounded. It was extremely difficult for a contracted beast to break through to the stage. Similarly, it was also very difficult for a contracted beast to break through to the stage. It was extremely difficult to nurture a contracted beast of the Starlight Stage. Was a beast. Not only a beast had to have a realm beast, a beast had a Starlight Stage, and Hongzhan Han. Di Wentao's violent earth bear was already very famous here, because that contracted beast had already reached the 8th level of the Purple Realm. Was a strong Hongzhuang with the stage Starlight Stage. If a contracted beast could break through to the stage Starlight Stage, its value would be greatly different. It was equivalent to having greater potential and a limitless future. Bailey Hongzhuang had just broken through to the stage Starlight Stage not long ago. Her contracted beast had also reached the stage Starlight Stage. This was truly shocking. Not only Yi Haomiao, but his 2 opponents were also dumbfounded. No wonder this contracted beast could kill the Berserk Earth Bear. It's actually a contracted beast of the stage Starlight Stage. Damn, I'm afraid only an inscription master has the ability to nurture such a contracted beast. Chapter 42-22. Even so, Di Wentao could only raise the violent earth bear's cultivation to the 8th level of the Purple Realm. It would be extremely difficult to advance further. Although Di Wentao had always hoped that his violent earth bear could break through to the Starlight Realm, they were very clear that this was absolutely not an easy matter. However, Bailey Hongzhuang was able to nurture a Starlight Realm contracted beast. Although the difference between the 2 seemed to be only 2 levels, in reality, this gap was really not an ordinary kind of big. After a short moment of shock, the battle between the 2 sides started again. Since today had already come to this point, it was obvious that they would not rest until one of them was dead. Little beauty, if you want to blame someone, you can only blame yourself for being Wanyan Han's junior sister. You just had to help him draw inscriptions, so you can only die here today. Don't blame me. If you want to blame someone, blame your senior brother. He dragged you down. Qianming sneered. Hearing the other party's ridicule, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but sneer, and said, "There's something that I think you might be mistaken about. The one dying here today is not me, but you." You should remember clearly that this is because of Di Wentao that you ended up like this. Qian Ming's expression changed. As expected, you have a sharp tongue. I want to see if you can still be so proud when you're about to die. Go ahead and try. Bailey Hongzhuang said coldly. Boom. Both sides' essence powers surged out at the first moment. When Qian Ming discovered that Bailey Hongzhuang was a Starlight Realm Level 2, a trace of shock flashed across his eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang was really too young. When he was so young, he did not seem to have reached the other party's cultivation. For a moment, he suddenly felt that the lower realm's cultivators were somewhat terrifying. No matter if it was Bailey Hongzhuang in front of him or Wan Yanhan who was currently fighting, their talent and potential were both very terrifying. I admit that your talent is very shocking, but unfortunately, you're going to die in my hands today. Just after Qian Ming said this, Bailey Hongzhuang snorted coldly, and the blood chi field was instantly displayed. A faint smell of blood pervaded the air, and that white figure was quietly dyed with a trace of blood color. Following that, the blood color gradually covered, and her aura also continuously rose. 3rd rank Astral Radiance. 4th level Astral Radiance. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang easily raise her aura to Star Radiance rank 4, not only Qian Ming, but all the cultivators present were dumbfounded. For a moment he couldn't wrap his head around it. He couldn't figure out what method Bailey Hongzhuang had used to directly increase her cultivation. Wow, I really didn't expect this woman to have such ability. It's really amazing. How did his cultivation increase so much all of a sudden? Previously, there was still a huge gap, but now the gap has narrowed by a lot. I didn't think that the cultivators of the lower realms would have so many tricks up their sleeves. Now that I've seen it today, it's truly amazing. For a time, the way everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but change. They were extremely shocked in their hearts. Yi Haomiao and Wan Yanhan also noticed the change in Bailey Hongzhuang. They were shocked. They didn't expect her to have such ability. Previously, they had underestimated Bailey Hongzhuang. However, Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't done with her blood aura field. Her killing aura field suddenly exploded. Chapter 42-23. This kind of murderous intent seemed to come from a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. The thick murderous intent almost condensed into a substance. Everyone only felt a gust of cold air enter their bodies, following which, the fear in their hearts magnified infinitely. When Qian Ming looked at Bailey Hongzhuang again, he only felt that the latter's figure suddenly became taller and bigger. In his heart, she actually became an undefeatable existence. Terrifying. Too terrifying. Qian Ming's pupils shrank. A thought of retreating actually arose in his heart. He didn't dare to fight against the other party at all. The influence of this murderous intent was really too great. Under Bailey Hongzhuang's control, it directly enveloped Di Wentao and the other 4 people. Di Wentao originally wasn't Wan Yanhan's match. However, with Yan Xiangming's help, he was able to maintain his position and not be defeated. Suddenly, he felt a terrifying murderous intent directly enveloping his entire person. Immediately after, his body instantly stiffened. That eerie chill made his back shiver and his movements became sluggish. After Wan Yanhan discovered the change in Di Wentao, he immediately released a ruthless move. In a battle between cultivators of similar strength, one had to grab hold of the other party's mistake. Once it was done, then the other party wouldn't have the power to counterattack. Bam! Wan Yanhan's move landed solidly on Di Wentao's body. Immediately after, Di Wentao's figure fell heavily onto the ground. Di Wentao spat out a mouthful of blood. However, he didn't look at Wan Yanhan immediately. Instead, he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's position. This was because he clearly felt that the aura just now came from Bailey Hongzhuang. Even at this time, that surging murderous intent was still so obvious. He also finally understood why Bailey Hongzhuang appeared so indifferent when he released his murderous intent previously. It turned out that he was simply displaying his slight skill in front of an expert. Compared to Bailey Hongzhuang's murderous intent, what he released previously was nothing. However, he completely couldn't understand. Bailey Hongzhuang was so young. How could she possess such a terrifying murderous intent? One had to have experienced something like this to be able to release such killing intent. Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao also looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in shock. They could feel that under the suppression of Bailey Hongzhuang's killing intent, the battle strength of Di Wentao and the others had been greatly weakened. Clearly, they had been affected. Such a skill was truly terrifying. Gulp. Yi Haomiao gulped again. He felt that he shouldn't underestimate Wang Yanhan's little junior sister. It was only when he noticed Qian Ming, who was lying at Bailey Hongzhuang's feet, that he realized how powerful Bailey Hongzhuang was. To be able to fight someone 3 levels higher than him, this was the first person he had ever met. Yan Xiangming and the others were all dumbfounded. This scene was beyond all of their expectations. For a moment, they even found it hard to believe. No wonder Bailey Hongzhuang had acted so calmly and fearlessly in the face of so many of them. It turned out that she was also a powerful character. They had been blind previously. Bailey Hongzhuang stepped on Qian Ming to make him behave. Then she turned to look at Wang Yanhan and said, "Senior brother, how should we deal with this?" Although she really wanted to kill this fellow directly, this fellow and Wang Yanhan belonged to the same faction after all. She didn't want to put Wang Yanhan in a difficult position because of her momentary pleasure. Therefore, the final decision was left to Wang Yanhan. Chapter 42-24. Qian Ming was so depressed that he almost cried. This was a battle that he thought he would definitely win. He didn't know how it turned into such an ending. Now, he was directly stepped on by Bailey Hongzhuang. He had already lost face to the extreme. However, the other party's sword was on his neck. He didn't doubt that as long as he moved slightly, the other party's sword would directly cut his throat. For a moment, he could only pin his hopes on Wang Yanhan. Bailey Hongzhuang was Wang Yanhan's junior sister. As long as Wang Yanhan didn't want to kill him, he believed that Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely agree. Wang Yanhan looked at Qian Ming and Di Wentao, who fell on the ground, and then looked at the other 3 cultivators who had already stopped moving. Thoughts flew in his mind. Wang Yanhan, we are from the same sect. You can't kill me. Qian Ming saw that Wang Yanhan didn't speak for a long time and couldn't help but become anxious. If it was in the past, he didn't have to worry at all because Wang Yanhan wouldn't kill them. However, Wang Yanhan's personality had obviously changed a lot recently. He didn't dare to be so confident. He won't dare to do it. Di Wentao's expression was certain. Even if Wang Yanhan pointed a weapon at him, his expression was still very indifferent. It was as if he wasn't worried at all. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't speak. She just looked at Wang Yanhan indifferently. However, she felt somewhat helpless. Senior brother's personality was really too indecisive. If not, Di Wentao and the others wouldn't dare to find trouble with him time and time again. If it was her, she would have given the other party a fierce blow from the beginning. The other party would naturally stop. This was because he had always been restrained. That was why the other party had become like this. Because they didn't have to worry about the consequences, they had no scruples. However, she also understood that the reason why Wang Yanhan became like this was probably because he had been alone and without help after coming to the upper level. As time passed, he lost his previous decisiveness and ruthlessness. A person's personality would change according to the environment. Wang Yanhan was able to obtain such a position in Penglai Palace in the past. She didn't need to think to know that he was definitely not a person with such a personality. This matter was also a kind of opportunity for him. It would depend on what choice he made. If he still chose to let them go like this, she would not object either. She would just be a little disappointed. Wang Yanhan was originally hesitating, but after hearing Di Wentao's arrogant words, a kind of anger rose in his heart for no reason. The other party seemed to have seen through him and was certain that he had no guts. This feeling made him extremely unhappy. He had never been such a person. If it was in the past, he would have killed the other party without hesitation. However, ever since he came here, he was affected by the surrounding environment and gradually lost his courage. At this moment, he suddenly noticed a flash of disappointment in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. His heart was suddenly shocked, and he seemed to understand at this moment. This matter did not only concern him, but also Bailey Hongzhuang. According to Bailey Hongzhuang's character, she would definitely not let the other party off. She only left the matter to him for his sake. If he let them go just like that, wouldn't he disappoint little junior sister? He couldn't do that. Chapter 42-25. Di Wentao's eyes widened as he stared at Wang Yanhan in shock. His mind was still in a daze, as if he could not believe that the other party had dared to attack him. Only when he felt a sharp pain did he realize that he had not seen wrongly. The other party had really attacked him. An indescribable pain surrounded Di Wentao. His body instantly curled up like a prawn. At the same time, his face flushed red and his veins popped out. His face was so red that it looked as if blood could drip out. He stared at Wang Yanhan with a burning gaze. His eyes were filled with disbelief and bone-piercing hatred. Di Wentao's gaze was extremely terrifying. His eyes seemed to have turned red from the immense pain, as if they were going to jump out of his eye sockets. However, under such intense pain, he could not even speak a complete sentence. He could only stare at him hatefully. At this moment, countless thoughts flashed across Di Wentao's mind. He started to regret. He had never thought that Wang Yanhan would have the guts to destroy his dantian. What was the difference between doing this and directly killing him? In the upper realm, he had become a complete cripple. He could not continue to stay here. However, after noticing that Wang Yanhan's gaze had gradually become firm, the regret in his heart became even more intense. He should have stopped when Wang Yanhan's temperament changed. In that case, today's incident wouldn't have happened. It was he himself who was unwilling to believe that Wang Yanhan would suddenly change his character. He only felt that the previous incident was merely an accident. However, today's incident made him clearly understand that everything was not an accident. Yan Xiangming and the rest stared blankly at this scene. Each and every one of them inhaled a breath of cold air. Their widened eyes revealed the shock in their hearts. They did not dare to believe that Wang Yanhan would actually do such a thing. Oh my God, I didn't see wrongly, right? Did Wang Yanhan destroy Wentao's dantian? What's wrong with him today? He even dares to do such a thing. It's completely different from his usual character. Yan Xiangming and the rest exchanged glances. They felt as if their brains had been smashed by a huge rock. They completely could not understand why such a thing had happened. His dantian was destroyed. This was something they had never expected. When they looked at Wang Yanhan again, the gazes of Yan Xiangming and the others had completely changed. Bailey Hongzhuang and Yi Haomiao's expressions changed when they saw this. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips slowly curled into a smile. It seemed that eldest senior brother had not completely lost his blood. He was still able to make such a decision even after the other party had bullied him. As long as he had this kind of courage, then nothing was scary. Yi Haomiao's shock was no less than that of Yan Xiangming and the others. He had known Wang Yanhan for a long time and knew his character very well. All along, Wang Yanhan had never done anything out of line. He did not expect that he would actually give people a huge shock today. The curve of Bailey Hongzhuang's lips was not ignored by everyone. Di Wentao and the others all noticed this point. Suddenly, their gazes towards Wang Yanhan and Bailey Hongzhuang became somewhat complicated. It's all because of this woman. Chapter 42-26. After seeing Wang Yanhan's actions, Bailey Hongzhuang did not waste any more time and immediately attacked Qian Ming's dantian with a punch. Bang! There was another deflating sound, and Qian Ming's state quickly became the same as Di Wentao's. Senior brother, I already know your decision. Bailey Hongzhuang did not have the slightest bit of sympathy for Qian Ming in front of her. Committing too much injustice would lead to one's own destruction. From the beginning to the end, it was the other party who was finding trouble with her. In fact, she did not do anything at all. The conflict between Wang Yanhan and Di Wentao was completely their enmity and had nothing to do with her. Just because she gave an inscription, the other party wanted to kill her. It could be seen how ruthless the other party was. Since the other party wanted to take her life, there was naturally no need for her to be polite. Those who killed would be killed by others. When the other party attacked her with such feelings, she should have been mentally prepared. Karma. Everything was a cycle. If she had to blame someone, she could only blame herself for not being strong enough, which caused her to fall into such a state. She did not doubt that if she was the one lying on the ground at this moment, the other party would directly take her life. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and Wang Yanhan's actions, the cultivators present exclaimed again. Their gazes were filled with sadness as they looked at Qian Ming. As a cultivator, they knew too well how much effort it took to raise one's cultivation to such a state. However, many years of hard work had completely disappeared today. One could imagine how depressed they were. This time, Di Wentao and Qian Ming are really regretting it. It's a pity that there's no medicine for regret in this world. They were the ones who initiated this conflict. Now that they have fallen into such a state, they can only say that they are unlucky. Although Wang Yanhan is from the lower realm, he is indeed not weak. However, I feel that his junior sister is even more impressive. Everybody was talking, looking at Wang Yanhan and Bailey Hongzhuang with eyes full of amazement. Their actions today really made everyone's eyes light up. Yi Haomiao could not help but walk to Wang Yanhan's side. His expression was very complicated, and there was a trace of worry between his brows. Wang Yanhan, now that things have come to this step, how do you plan to deal with the aftermath? As far as he knew, although Di Wentao's strength couldn't compare to Wang Yanhan's, his family was originally from the upper realm. Once they learned of this news, they would probably send people over immediately. After all, their own family had suffered such a huge loss. It was impossible for them not to get back at them. But Wang Yanhan was alone. How could he be a match for the other party's family? Wang Yanhan also understood Yi Haomiao's worries, but he shook his head, his expression still resolute. All this time he's been causing trouble for me. What good will come of me tolerating him? Since he wants to kill me, I might as well kill him before he kills me. This way, at least someone will be my scapegoat, and I won't die unjustly. Wang Yanhan's voice was firm. Previously, he didn't understand this point. However, after today's events, he finally understood. Even if his family comes, if we really fight, I might be able to win one. Wang Yanhan chuckled. At this point, he was no longer worried about these problems. Chapter 42-27. Yi Haomiao, who was originally extremely worried, calmed down a lot after hearing Wang Yanhan's thoughts. Wang Yanhan was right. Things had already come to this point. No matter what they thought, it was useless. They could only see what decision Di Wentao's family made. If the other party decided to pursue the matter, they could only do their best to resist the trouble that would arise. Thinking back to when I was in the lower realm, I was never afraid of trouble. Wang Yanhan's gaze was distant as if he was thinking of the past. Once upon a time, he was also so high-spirited and fearless. At that time, he was together with Wang Yanling. The two of them also had no background when they were on Penglai Island, but they dared to fight and finally achieve their own achievements in Penglai Palace. At this moment, he suddenly understood all the problems as if he was enlightened. When he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang again, there was a trace of gratitude in his eyes. He wanted to thank his little junior sister. If it weren't for her, he didn't know when he would have been able to wake up to all this. Now, he was really too cowardly. He didn't know when it started, but he actually became timid. He didn't dare to do anything and didn't dare to do anything. If he continued to be like this, then what was the point of staying in the upper realm for a long time? He came here to seek a higher level of improvement. If he even lost his courage, then he might as well have stayed in the lower realm. He hoped that after his younger brother came, he would see the him who had made a name for himself, and not be so timid now. Thinking about it, if Wang Yanling saw his current appearance, he would probably feel very disappointed. However, fortunately, he still had a chance to change now. Yi Haomiao nodded slightly. You're right. After being suppressed by them for so long, everyone has a temper. Now that they have ended up like this, they deserve it. Even if their family comes to find us, we have the same reason. After Bailey Hongzhuang heard the conversation between Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao, she secretly sighed in her heart. Master, your senior brother has finally gotten over it. Xiao He couldn't help but sigh. Fortunately, he has now thought it through. Otherwise, if he continues like this, I'm afraid he will be stuck at a bottleneck forever and it will be very difficult for him to improve. For cultivators, the most important thing was a brave heart. Without this brave heart, it was easy to fall into shackles and it would be difficult to break through. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Fortunately, he has now understood it. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were immersed in their own emotions, Di Wentao roared. Wentao, 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 Wentao's right. Di Wentao looked at Wan Yanhan as if he was looking at an irreconcilable enemy. All his hopes in this life had been destroyed by Wan Yanhan. You're just a cultivator from the lower realm, yet you dared to cripple my Dantian. You're really brave. I swear that you will die a horrible death. No matter where you run to, I will find you. Di Wentao clenched his fists and his eyes were as red as blood. His words were like an oath. He would not rest until he killed Wentao Wentao. Chapter 42:28. I heard that Di Wentao's family is also a small force. If Wan Yanhan was someone with a background, it would be fine. But he's alone here, facing the other party, he can only be beaten. This is the reason why Wan Yanhan had been tolerating Di Wentao previously. However, he couldn't tolerate it anymore. There's no need to tolerate it anymore. That's why today's scene happened. He's just unlucky. People are born unjust. Di Wentao doesn't have to bear any consequences for killing him. But now that he retaliates, he has to bear the unbearable consequences. Everyone sighed faintly. Their gazes towards Wan Yanhan contained a trace of sympathy. They knew very well that after today, Wan Yanhan would disappear from the upper realm not long after. After Bailey Hongzhuang heard the discussions of the surrounding cultivators, she understood the situation better. Wan Yanhan did have his reasons for doing so previously. However, although this was a kind of pressure, she didn't care too much about it. After all, she had always been a troublemaker. This kind of thing had happened to her more than once or twice. No one knew what the final result would be until the last moment. Wan Yanhan turned to look at Di Wentao and stared straight into the other party's blood-red eyes. Di Wentao, I've always wanted to keep a distance from you. It's you who kept finding trouble with me. You only have yourself to blame for today's outcome. Hearing Wan Yanhan's words, Di Wentao's anger surged. You damned fellow. You dared to destroy my Dantian and now you dare to say such things to me. It's useless for me to tell you. You will definitely die in the hands of my Di family. Then I'll wait. Wan Yanhan's expression was indifferent, as if he didn't feel Di Wentao's threat. Looking at Wan Yanhan's appearance that was like a dead pig that did not fear boiling water, Di Wentao's anger surged. Now, his heart was filled with despair. He only wanted to see Wan Yanhan's even more desperate appearance. However, the other party's current nonchalant appearance undoubtedly stung his eyes and intensified the hatred in his heart. It's not just you. Yi Haomiao and your junior sister will pay with their lives for you. Di Wentao gnashed his teeth. He already hated both Bailey Hongzhuang and Yi Haomiao. Hearing this, Wan Yanhan's expression changed slightly. He couldn't help but turn to look at Bailey Hongzhuang. Both of their expressions were apologetic. I'm sorry for dragging you all into this. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said, Senior brother, you don't have to feel guilty. I know that a large part of what you did today was to help me vent my anger. So what if the Di family came knocking on their door? We'll face it together. Bailey Hongzhuang was very calm. For a long time, the trouble she had caused had never stopped. Now, after coming to the upper realm, she had caused trouble again. For her, although it was not what she wanted to see, she did not feel afraid because of it. Yi Haomiao was originally hesitant. However, when he heard that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't mind, he couldn't help but smile and say, Since Miss Bailey isn't afraid as a man, how could I be afraid? When Wan Yanhan, who had originally felt extremely guilty, saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and Yi Haomiao were standing by his side, his eyes couldn't help but shine with gratitude. Providing charcoal in snowy weather had always been the strongest form of friendship. Chapter 42:29. Master, it looks like we've gotten ourselves into big trouble again. Xiao He said helplessly. She had wanted to keep a low profile after coming to the upper realm. She never thought that they would end up in such a situation. Seeing Xiao He's helpless look, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but chuckle. Things aren't that bad. If the other party is someone we can deal with, we'll do our best to deal with them. If the other party is very strong, we won't be able to deal with them at all. At most, we'll just run away. Bailey Hongzhuang appeared to be very calm. Running away was a good move at any time. The upper realm is a big place. According to what everyone has said, although Di Wentao has some background, it's not an extremely powerful force. It won't be easy for them to travel to the ends of the earth to find us. Besides, Di Wentao has now become a cripple. Even if his parents are willing to do their best for him, his clansmen will only help him vent his anger for a short period of time. After a long period of time, they will naturally not be willing to do anything. As a member of the same clan, Bailey Hongzhuang understood the situation very well. If Di Wentao was a cultivator full of potential, the clan would be very willing to spend a lot of money on him. However, if he no longer had any value, they would at most help him vent his anger in the beginning. After a long period of time, it would be impossible. Master, I was originally quite worried. After hearing what you said, I don't think it's a big deal. Xiao He could not help but say. So now we have to see how important Di Wentao's clan is to him. Chen Ming lay on the ground in a daze. His face was ashen. It was obvious that he could not accept the fact that he had become a cripple. When he saw that Di Wentao's threat did not have any effect on Bailey Hongzhuang's people, his heart could not help but thump. If he had known that the other party had such shameless thoughts, he would not have done anything to them. As the saying goes, those who have nothing to lose are not afraid of those who wear shoes. If the other party had no scruples, it would be very scary. Yen Han's gaze involuntarily shifted to Yan Xiangming and the other two. Now that Di Wentao and Chen Ming had become like this, as helpers, Yan Xiangming and the other two were also in the wrong. After noticing Yen Han's gaze, Yan Xiangming and the other two couldn't help but be stunned. Almost at the same time, the three of them fled outside without hesitation. The current Yen Han was no longer the same as before. If they continued to stay here, once Yen Han decided to kill them, then they would really be finished. Di Wentao and Chen Ming were stunned as they watched Yan Xiangming's group of three rapidly escaping figures. They couldn't help but be stunned. Yan Xiangming! Di Wentao couldn't help but shout out. He didn't even have the strength to stand up. Seeing Yan Xiangming and the other two leave like this, what should he do? However, during this period of time, Yan Xiaoming and the others were not in the mood to care about Di Wentao. They only wanted to quickly leave this place and protect themselves. Yen Han smiled as he looked at Di Wentao's furious expression. Does this feeling of being wronged feel good? Di Wentao's face turned cold. What does that have to do with you? Chapter 4230. Di Wentao looked at Yen Han with hatred. At this moment he didn't know what else to say. At this point, he only wanted to kill Yen Han. No, killing Yen Han would be too easy for him. He wanted Yen Han to understand what it meant to live a life worse than death. Yen Han glanced coldly at Di Wentao, then turned to Bailey Hongzhuang and Yi Haomiao, saying, "Let's go." Hearing this, Yi Haomiao hurriedly walked to Yen Han's side. Bailey Hongzhuang paused for a moment before following along. Di Wentao and Chen Ming were still lying on the ground in a daze. With their dantians suddenly destroyed, it would take a lot of effort for them to stand up again. Wentao, you can't let the three of them off. Chen Ming had a long face. He really regretted it. He thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was the easiest to deal with. He didn't expect her to be such a tough nut to crack. He couldn't help but envy the three of them. At least the three of them were fine and didn't suffer any losses. Why was he so stupid and implicated himself? Now, he could only place all his hopes on Di Wentao, hoping that Di Wentao could help him vent his anger. Di Wentao glanced at Chen Ming beside him. Then, the anger in his eyes burned even brighter. I will definitely tear the three of them into pieces. After leaving the place of departure, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two walked towards the inn. However, after such a thing happened, the atmosphere between the three of them was a little gloomy. Master, did you do something to Di Wentao and Chen Ming just now? Baisher walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side and asked through telepathy. Before leaving, it clearly noticed that its master paused for a moment. With its master's character, she definitely wouldn't do this for no reason. Bailey Hongzhuang touched Baisher's head, the corners of her lips slowly curved into a smile. Things have already gotten to this point. Instead of turning them into useless people, it would be better to directly turn them into dead people. This way, the trouble will be less. She knew very well that although Wang Yanhan destroyed Di Wentao's dantian, he didn't kill him. Presumably, he still had some hope in his heart. After all, Di Wentao hadn't died, so they hadn't become mortal enemies. However, she still helped Wang Yanhan. She definitely couldn't let Di Wentao and his companion return alive. Otherwise, all of this would become even more troublesome. She understood the situation of aristocratic families too well. Wang Yanhan wasn't a member of an aristocratic family, so he didn't know much about this situation. If Di Wentao had already fallen, the people of his family coming to find trouble with him was just a moment of anger, and it would be fine after a long time. However, if Di Wentao had become a cripple, then they would never forget this matter. As a cultivator, dying was a common occurrence. Everyone was mentally prepared for such a thing. Chapter 4231. Master, you did the right thing. Bai Shi nodded. Di Wentao isn't easy to deal with. It's a pity that today's incident happened in front of everyone's eyes. If no one else was around, we might be able to cover it up. However, since things have come to this, we can only try our best to minimize the impact. Wang Yanhan, why don't we leave now? Yi Haomiao could not help but stop in his tracks. The worry between his brows did not dissipate. The reason Di Wentao could be so rampant was because of the power behind him. Yan Xiangming and the others were not weak either. However, because the power behind Di Wentao was stronger, they had always followed Di Wentao as their leader. Now that something like this had happened, they were definitely no match for the power behind Di Wentao. Instead of waiting for them to come knocking on their door, they might as well leave first. It would not be easy for them to find them again. Hearing Yi Haomiao's words, Wang Yanhan pondered for a moment before stubbornly shaking his head. No, I won't leave. Seeing that Wang Yanhan was so stubborn, Yi Haomiao was puzzled. Why? No matter where I am, I'll always run into trouble. Even if I go somewhere else now and successfully avoid them, what if the same thing happens again? As long as the problem that I don't have anyone to rely on doesn't change, I'll never be able to change this situation. If I'm always afraid of this, I might as well return to the lower realm. Then I won't have to worry anymore. Ever since the incident happened, he had been thinking about how to deal with it. Now that things had developed into the worst situation, he was no longer worried. Anyway, no matter how bad it was, he might as well wait quietly like this. Yi Haomiao, who was originally very anxious, had a slight change in expression after hearing Wang Yanhan's words. Indeed, the upper realm was so big. However, if these cultivators from the lower realm wanted to gain a foothold, they had to rely on their own hands to make a name for themselves. Otherwise, no matter where they went, they would be targeted. What you said makes sense. Yi Haomiao's eyes became resolute. Since that's the case, let's wait here and see what they'll do. As he spoke, Yi Haomiao's gaze involuntarily landed on Bailey Hongzhuang. When he saw Bailey Hongzhuang's indifferent expression, he couldn't help but become curious. Miss Bailey, things have already developed to this point. Why do I see that you don't seem to be the least bit flustered or worried? Wang Yanhan couldn't help but shift his line of sight. As expected, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't seem to be worried about this matter at all. From the beginning to the end, Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude towards this matter was too indifferent. Since things have already turned out this way, there's no point in worrying. Even if something like this were to happen again, the decision we made would not change at all. Don't regret what you've done. As for the consequences, we might not necessarily lose. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint smile. Along the way, there were many opponents who were stronger than her, but she still managed to survive until now. Man's will triumphed over nature. Everything was in one's control. Chapter 4232. After being completely immersed in the terrible consequences of this matter, Wang Yanhan recalled how amazing Bailey Hongzhuang's performance was just now. He couldn't help but sigh. In the past, he had always thought that he was an excellent genius in the lower realm. However, compared with Bailey Hongzhuang in front of him, there was still a big gap between him and her. After all, not only was Bailey Hongzhuang's strength outstanding, but her inscription technique was also so amazing. Yi Haomiao nodded repeatedly. Yes, today really opened my eyes. Originally, I was worried that Miss Bailey would be difficult to deal with. I didn't expect you to be able to defeat Qianming. At that time, I was dumbfounded. You're flattering me. After noticing their exaggerated expressions, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh. This isn't flattery. This is the truth. Wang Yanhan's expression was firm. Although I don't know what the situation was like in the lower realm, I can imagine that you are definitely a genius. No wonder you came to the upper realm at such a young age. Instead, my brother is still in Penglai Palace. Since coming to the upper realm, he had always hoped to be able to reunite with Wan Yanling as soon as possible. Unfortunately, Wan Yanling hadn't come to the upper realm yet. Moreover, even if Wan Yanling came, judging from the situation in the upper realm, he didn't know when they would be able to reunite. Senior brother Wan Yanling can already come to the upper realm. Maybe he wants to improve his strength before coming back. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. She believed that it wouldn't be long before Wan Yanling came to the upper world. Unfortunately, the cultivators in the lower realm imagined the upper realm to be extremely beautiful. However, after coming here, they understood that the situation here was even more cruel. Sigh, now that I'm in such a situation, I don't know whether I want him to come or not, Wang Yanhan sighed. He thought back to when he came up first to understand the situation first. After Wan Yanling came, he could take good care of him. In the current situation, he couldn't even take care of himself, let alone take care of Wan Yanling. He might even drag Wan Yanling down. Bailey Hongzhuang and Yi Haomiao felt a little helpless when they saw Wan Yanhan's appearance. Even if they tried to comfort him, it wouldn't be of much use. Senior brother, let me join your force as well. Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly said. Wan Yanhan and Yi Haomiao were both startled when they heard this. They obviously didn't understand why Bailey Hongzhuang would suddenly choose to join them at this moment. Little junior sister, didn't you always say that you didn't want to join? Wan Yanhan asked. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Now we're already grasshoppers on the same rope. Since you're all part of the same force, I might as well join. Anyway, even if I don't join, the D family won't let me off when they find me. The three of us can at least take care of each other. Since Di Wentao could directly find her today, the people behind him could naturally find her as well. Since he didn't plan to hide, he might as well wait for them to come. Moreover, she had her own reasons for this matter. That's true. It's indeed more dangerous for Miss Bailey to be alone outside. Why don't you join us? At least we can take care of each other. Yi Haomiao nodded. If he hadn't coincidentally heard this news today, the outcome would have been different if he had arrived late. Chapter 42-33. The news of Wan Yanhan destroying Di Wentao's Dantian quickly spread throughout Rong-En City. The Raging Flames sect that they belonged to was a very famous force in Rong-En City. Di Wentao had stayed in Rong-En City for so many years, so many cultivators knew him. Everyone had heard about the conflict between the two of them, but no one expected Wan Yanhan, who had always been suppressed, to do such a shocking thing today. The cultivators of the Raging Flames sect were all dumbfounded when they heard about this. No one dared to believe it at first. However, after seeing Yan Xiangming and the other two's dejected expressions, everyone began to believe it. In an instant, the Raging Flames sect was in an uproar. Wan Yanhan is really crazy now. He actually dared to destroy Di Wentao's Dantian. Di Wentao is now a cripple. I wonder if Wan Yanhan has already escaped. Now that the matter has become so big, it would be troublesome if he didn't escape. Aren't you talking nonsense? He must have already escaped. Otherwise, would he stay here and wait for death? However, just as everyone was certain that Wan Yanhan couldn't have returned, their gazes suddenly froze, and they looked as if they had seen a ghost. This was because in their line of sight, wasn't Wan Yanhan among the three people who were walking over? Am I seeing things? A cultivator couldn't help but rub his eyes. Wan Yanhan actually dares to return now. Isn't he afraid of Di Wentao's revenge? The girl beside him should be the junior sister he mentioned, right? I didn't expect her to be so young. I heard that this junior sister isn't easy to deal with. Her combat power is very strong. Even Qian Ming was defeated by her and his cultivation was destroyed by her. Now I feel that the cultivators in the lower realm are actually quite powerful. Someone sighed with emotion, and then everyone couldn't help but nod their heads. Although Wang Yanhan and the others didn't have any background, they had to admit that they were quite powerful. At least, among the newcomers of the Raging Flames sect, their strength was extremely outstanding. Bailey Hongzhuang walked through the Raging Flame school and saw that everyone was wearing the same clothes. The red and white clothes were very bright, and the symbol of the Raging Flames was tattooed on their chests. Along the way, she realized that almost everyone's eyes were on them. She immediately understood. It seemed that the news of what they had done had spread very quickly. It had already spread throughout the entire Blazing Flame school. Little junior sister, I will bring you to see the steward. I believe that with your strength, the steward will definitely agree to accept you. Wang Yanhan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and said confidently. However, Bailey Hongzhuang was not so optimistic. That might have been the case in the past, but now that the news has spread throughout the Blazing Flame sect, I'm sure the steward already knows about it. Under such circumstances, the possibility of him being willing to accept me is not very high. Hearing this, Wang Yanhan couldn't help but frown. In that case, there was indeed such a possibility. Let's think about how we're going to face the manager first. Yi Haomiao was a little helpless. They didn't know if the steward would blame them for causing such a mess. If the steward wanted to chase them away because he didn't want to take responsibility, that would be really troublesome. Then they could only leave this place. Chapter 42-34. I don't think Steward Wu is that kind of person. Wang Yanhan's eyes flickered with thought. The Steward Wu he knew wasn't that kind of person. If Steward Wu really cared about his background, he wouldn't have appointed him as the leader. He wouldn't have had the chance to surpass Di Wentao in the Blazing Sect. I hope that's the case. Yi Haomiao frowned. His mind was in a mess. He couldn't think of a good idea. Senior brother, go in and take a look. I'll wait outside. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were clear and her expression was calm. She naturally had to wait for Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao to deal with their own matters before deciding whether or not she should join the Blazing Sect. If the Blazing Sect chased Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao away over such a small matter, then there was naturally no need for her to stay. Junior sister, wait for me here. We'll go in first. All right. Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao entered the room. Bailey Hongzhuang stood outside, looking at the scene of the Raging Flames door. The Blazing Sect covered a large area. When news of Wang Yanhan's return spread, many cultivators came to watch the show. However, Bailey Hongzhuang also saw Yan Xiangming and the other two who had left earlier. The three of them were looking at her with extremely gloomy gazes. Clearly, although the previous battle didn't cause them any harm, they had lost all their dignity. They were probably hoping that Steward Wu would blame them so that they could vent their anger. Standing in the crowd, Yan Xiangming and the other two also felt Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze. Suddenly, their gloomy eyes became somewhat gloating. Although they had lost their dignity, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two could very well lose their lives because of this. Let's see how Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao can still be so arrogant now. Steward Wu definitely won't sit by and do nothing after hearing this news, Yan Xiangming said viciously. Today, they really tried to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. Originally, they wanted to kill Bailey Hongzhuang to properly warn Wang Yanhan. They didn't expect that it would instead agitate him and make him do such an outrageous thing. This woman isn't a good person either. If it wasn't for her, Wang Yanhan wouldn't have dared to do such a thing. But if we just leave Di Wentao and the others there, I'm afraid Di Wentao will bear a grudge against us. Another cultivator frowned. They didn't intend to leave Di Wentao there, but at that time, they had no choice. They were worried that if they continued to stay, they would end up like Di Wentao, so they could only leave in a hurry. I don't know. Why don't we take this opportunity to go back and take a look? If they are still there, we can settle them down. Maybe this way, Wentao won't blame us. The three of them exchanged glances as they tried to come up with a solution. They had been following Di Wentao all this time and had received a lot of benefits from Di Wentao. At the same time, They were even more aware that Di Wentao's background was not something they could afford to offend. Although it was inevitable that Di Wentao would bear a grudge for what happened just now, there was still a chance to make up for it now. Thinking of this, the three of them immediately disappeared into the crowd. Chapter 42-35. What's the point of going back to look for Di Wentao and the rest now? I'm sure Di Wentao already hates them. Xiao Bai chuckled, her eyes filled with mockery. That's right. Di Wentao is clearly a petty person. The feeling of being abandoned by his peers is not much better than being defeated by us. Xiao He shrugged. It definitely did not feel good to be betrayed by someone you trusted. However, from their actions, it can be seen that Di Wentao's authority is deeply rooted in their hearts. They fear Di Wentao from the bottom of their hearts. Bailey Hongzhuang pondered and said, "Looks like Di Wentao's background is really not to be underestimated. Master, if that's the case, will Steward Wu chase Wanyan Han and Lin Haoming out of the door?" Baisher could not help but ask. Now, Wanyan Han had made up his mind to stay here and face all the trouble he had caused. However, if the Blazing Flames sect wanted to chase him out, then, probably not. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said, if Steward Wu is someone who values background, he would not have given the position of leader to senior brother Wanyan. Senior brother Wanyan himself said that he does not think Steward Wu is such a person. I believe senior brother's judgment is very accurate. When Wanyan Han and Lin Haoming entered the room, they realized that Steward Wu's brows were tightly furrowed. His expression was solemn and he looked at them with a very complicated gaze. I already know what happened. What do you have to say? Steward Wu's right hand tapped rhythmically on the table. His gaze was fixed on Wanyan Han and Lin Haoming. His expression was unfathomable and no one could see through him. Hearing Steward Wu's words, Wanyan Han and Lin Haoming fell silent for a moment before speaking. Steward Wu, today's matter. Just as Wanyan Han was thinking about how to bring up the matter, Steward Wu spoke. I was very surprised when I heard the news today. I didn't think that you would actually do such a thing. Hearing this, Wanyan Han and Yi Haoming's hearts thumped. It seemed that Manager Wu was also very angry about this matter, which was why he said such words. Steward Wu, if this matter brings trouble to you, we can leave. Wanyan Han slowly spoke. His expression was somewhat gloomy. He had thought that things wouldn't be that bad, but he hadn't expected that things would end up like this. As such, they had no choice but to leave this place and join other forces. However, after hearing Wanyan Han's words, Manager Wu's frown deepened. He said, when did I say I wanted to chase you all away? Wanyan Han and Yi Haomiao, who had already determined the result, couldn't help but raise their heads when they heard this. They looked at Steward Wu with astonishment in their eyes. Manager Wu continued, what you've done today has indeed exceeded my expectations. However, I also know that Di Wentao has always been looking for trouble with you. It's only because you've tolerated him that you've been able to live peacefully until now. Although I don't know what happened today that led to such an outcome, I believe that you were forced to do so. Chapter 42-36. Steward Wu, you mean you won't chase us away? Yi Haomiao asked in surprise and joy. When did I say I wanted to chase you away? Steward Wu said. Then Steward Wu, what did you mean earlier? I just feel that the trouble you've caused is rather troublesome. It won't be easy to deal with it, Steward Wu sighed. Manager Wu sighed. His expression was complicated. When he found out about this, he knew that this matter would be extremely difficult to handle. He had promoted Wanyan Han to captain because he admired him. Although Wanyan Han had come from a lower world, his talent and ability were indeed outstanding. He had high hopes for him. However, he also knew that his actions had completely angered Di Wentao, which was why Di Wentao had been targeting Wanyan Han all this time, causing this matter to happen. At the end of the day, he was partly responsible for this matter as well. You need to think this through. If you leave now, it won't be so easy for Di Wentao to find you. However, if you continue to stay here, I can only guarantee that they won't be able to enter the Scorching Flames school to make trouble for you. Once you leave, you won't be able to avoid the trouble, Steward Wu said slowly. Hearing Steward Wu's words, Wanyan Han and Yi Haomiao clearly felt that Steward Wu was on their side. Joy immediately surged in their hearts. The situation was much better than what they had imagined. "Thank you, Steward Wu," the two of them smiled. "You need to think this through. If you continue to stay here, you'll have to face them sooner or later. With your current strength, it won't be enough," Steward Wu reminded them again. "Steward Wu, I've already thought it through. I won't run. Since I'm the one who caused this, I'm prepared to bear the consequences." Wang Yanhan's expression was resolute and persistent. He understood that leaving now was the best option, but he was unwilling to continue like this. Steward Wu smiled when he saw how determined Wang Yanhan was. He stood up and patted Wang Yanhan's shoulder. He smiled, "Good kid, I really didn't misjudge you." Wang Yanhan looked at Steward Wu in surprise. He knew that Steward Wu had always admired him, but he didn't expect that after he caused such trouble, Steward Wu could still maintain such an attitude. As cultivators, and with your youthful vigor, it's only to be expected that you would stir up some trouble. If he continued to restrain himself, then he would be lacking the vigor of a young man. Don't worry. Even if the D family comes looking for you, as long as you are still a cultivator of the Fiery Flame sect, I can guarantee that they will not dare to attack you on our territory. Steward Wu's eyes were bright and solemn, but his expression was extremely firm. It was obvious that he had already made up his mind. Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao stared blankly at Manager Wu. They never thought that Manager Wu would actually protect them like this. Immediately, a trace of gratitude rose in their hearts. "Thank you, Steward Wu. There's no need to be courteous. You two little brats better behave yourselves and stay in the sect to cultivate. Before you have enough strength, it's best not to go out rashly to avoid getting into trouble." "Yes." Chapter 4237. Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao could not help but chuckle when they saw Manager Wu sigh helplessly. What happened this time should not have happened. They really did not think that Manager Wu, who usually seemed very stern, would actually be so kind-hearted. It was evident that he had left them alone to protect them. How would they report this to their superiors was also a troublesome matter. Even so, Manager Wu was still determined to protect them. How could they not be moved? Ever since they came to the upper realm, they had endured all sorts of mockery and disdain. It was rare for them to feel such warmth. However, just as Manager Wu finished speaking, he realized that Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao were still standing where they were. They had no intention of leaving. He could not help but frown and ask, "Is there something else?" Wang Yanhan nodded and clasped his hands together. "Manager Wu, we do have a request." "What is it?" "My junior sister also comes from the lower realm. We've only met recently, and I want to recommend her to the Blazing Flame School. I wonder if you can accept her if she has no business with us?" Hearing that, Manager Wu could not help but chuckle. "You're already in a terrible fix yourself, yet you're still in the mood to worry about someone else? It's none of our business. Actually, my junior sister joined us today. She's now on the same boat as us." Wang Yanhan felt rather helpless. Her expression was filled with guilt. At the end of the day, I'm the one who dragged him down today. Manager Wu's eyes flickered with a complicated light as he said, "The person behind Di Wentao is also not an incompetent person. You all have caused such a commotion today, it is already not easy for me to protect you all. If I were to recruit the person with the lowest Di Wentao, then wouldn't I be standing against him?" Listening to Manager Wu's words, Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao looked at each other. Their expressions were rather complicated as well. They understood that this matter had indeed made things difficult for Manager Wu. However, under the current circumstances, they could not leave Bailey Hongzhuang alone outside. Immediately, they fell into a helpless silence. "Steward Wu, Miss Bailey is actually very powerful. You won't be disappointed if you recruit her." Yi Haomiao looked at Wu Guanshi. He knew very well that if Bailey Hongzhuang hadn't been involved in today's trouble, Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely have been welcomed to join the Blazing Sect. But if I want to recruit him, unless he has enough value to offset this trouble, I won't do this kind of unprofitable business. The two of you are disciples of the House of Raging Flames. It's only right that we protect you, but he isn't. Steward Wu's expression was cold. As one of the stewards of the Blazing Flame School, he naturally didn't act based on sympathy alone. Although he understood Wang Yanhan and Wang Yu's thoughts at this moment, if the other party didn't have enough value, he wouldn't recruit them. After all, provoking such a troublemaker was not beneficial to the House of Raging Flames. Just then, there was a knock on the door. "Come in," Steward Wu said. Then, Bailey Hongzhuang's figure appeared in their line of sight. "Junior sister?" Wang Yanhan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in surprise. He didn't think that Bailey Hongzhuang would actually come in by herself. Chapter 4238. Steward Wu, I know that if you tell me to recruit you into the Raging Flame School now, it will attract criticism. However, I hope that you can give me some time. After I finish speaking, if you still don't agree, I will leave. How about it? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a smile as elegant as a lotus, her eyes sparkling as bright as stars. Wu Wenfeng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in front of him and his expression changed slightly. Although this girl was young, she exuded confidence from head to toe. This kind of confidence wasn't showing off. On the contrary, it was confidence that was full of confidence. Even though it was only a glance, Wu Wenfeng was certain that this girl in front of him had some ability. At the same time, it also aroused his interest. "All right, I will give you some time." Wu Wenfeng sat down and his right hand tapped rhythmically on the table again. He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with interest. He wanted to know what this young girl wanted to say to him. Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao's gaze also fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. Originally, they were also thinking about how to make Steward Wu agree to recruit Bailey Hongzhuang. However, it seemed to be very difficult. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang was personally involved, they could only hope to achieve a certain effect. Steward Wu, although Di Wentao has a certain background, he is now a cripple. He is no longer of any value to his family. What we need to endure is their anger. As long as we let them understand that we are not people who can be easily dealt with, I believe that they will not continue to waste time on us. Since you have no intention of chasing senior brother Wang Yan and the others away, this proves that you are prepared to endure a certain degree of their anger. It's just that my participation will make their anger even more exuberant, but that's only to a limited extent. Comparatively speaking, recruiting an inscription master is also a good deal. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Wu Wenfeng and spoke her thoughts. If it was any other day, she would definitely reveal her identity as an alchemist. However, since everyone already knew that she was an inscription master, she might as well just face everyone with this identity. "You are an inscription master?" Wu Wenfeng raised his eyebrows, a hint of surprise between his brows. He had heard that the conflict between Wang Yanhan and Di Wentao was related to inscriptions, but he didn't know much about the specific situation. In fact, he had just returned today. However, he really didn't expect that this young woman before him would actually be an inscription master. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "That's right. Our Raging Flame School also has inscription apprentices. You should know that ordinary inscription apprentices aren't worth the risk." Wu Wenfeng's expression was solemn and his voice was cold. There was obviously a big gap between an inscription apprentice and a real inscription master. There were quite a number of inscription apprentices, but in order to become a true inscription master, one had to put in a lot of effort. "I am an inscription master." Bailey Hongzhuang spoke again. Wu Wenfeng was slightly stunned when he heard what Bailey Hongzhuang said, and a trace of puzzlement flashed within his eyes. But he quickly came to an understanding and said, "You mean you're not an inscription apprentice?" Chapter 4239. Steward Wu, my junior sister's inscription technique is actually very powerful. My inscription was drawn by her. Wang Yanhan stood up and added. He understood that Steward Wu was their only chance. If Steward Wu didn't agree, it would be impossible for junior sister to stay. "The inscription on your weapon?" Wu Wenfeng raised his eyebrows. There was a trace of surprise in his eyes. He took the weapon from Wang Yanhan's hand. As expected, there was an ice blue inscription on it. He understood that with Wang Yanhan's current wealth, it would be extremely difficult for him to obtain a suitable inscription pattern. He originally wanted to help Wang Yanhan when he returned, but he heard that Wang Yanhan had already obtained an inscription pattern. However, he didn't expect the inscription to be drawn by such a young lady. Wu Wenfeng immediately felt that he had smashed Wang Yanhan's weapon. Although this weapon could only be considered ordinary in the upper realm, it could still accompany Wan Yanhan for a period of time as long as it was inscribed. On the contrary, if the inscription wasn't good, it would be useless. Normally, he wouldn't care about the inscription. However, he heard that Wan Yanhan had easily defeated Di Wentao with the help of this inscription. It could be seen that this inscription was indeed good. Thinking of this, Wu Wenfeng channeled his origin energy into the weapon. Suddenly, he realized that the origin energy didn't feel any hindrance at all. His eyes lit up. Although he wasn't an inscription master, with his identity, he often came into contact with inscriptions. Hence, he could tell whether the inscription was good or bad by just sensing it. You drew this inscription? Wu Wenfeng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. His eyes were filled with surprise and suspicion. According to his understanding, this inscription wasn't bad. Even in the entire Rong and city, there were very few inscription masters who could draw such an inscription. Under such circumstances, he couldn't help but suspect that Wan Yanhan and the other two teamed up to deceive him. After all, as long as he recruited Bailey Hongzhuang, he naturally couldn't just kick her out. That's right. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. If Steward Wu doesn't believe me, I can draw an inscription pattern in front of you. You can also take the inscription pattern to be appraised before making a decision. Bailey Hongzhuang was very intelligent. Just from Wu Wenfeng's gaze, she could tell that the other party was definitely suspicious of her. Since that was the case, she might as well say it openly. After all, she had enough confidence to begin with. All right, we'll do as you say, Wu Wenfeng said. If Bailey Hongzhuang was really an outstanding inscriptionist, then recruiting her would definitely bring glory to the Blazing Sect. At their level, the effects of inscriptions were extremely important. For cultivators of the same level, this inscription could be said to be the key to victory during a battle. Just like before, Wan Yanhan could only fight Di Wentao to a draw. But after he obtained the inscription pattern, he could easily defeat Di Wentao. It could be seen how important inscription patterns were. Wan Yanhan and Yi Haomiao couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang worriedly. According to their understanding, this inscription pattern couldn't be successfully drawn every time. Moreover, the inscription pattern drawn by Bailey Hongzhuang was probably not of a low level. Naturally, the failure rate would be higher. Chapter 4240. Noticing their complicated expressions, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and shook her head, indicating that they did not need to worry. There was a certain failure rate when drawing the inscription pattern. The better the inscription pattern, the higher the failure rate. However, she had spent a lot of time drawing the inscription pattern recently, so she had a certain amount of confidence. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang took out the items needed to draw the inscription pattern. Wu Wenfeng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's methodical actions and believed her a little. After all, from the beginning to the end, Bailey Hongzhuang was extremely calm and did not seem to be flustered at all. He did not believe that such a young cultivator could pretend to be so perfect. There was only one explanation, and that was that she really had the ability. Thinking of this, Wu Wenfeng also admired Bailey Hongzhuang's inscription pattern. After Bailey Hongzhuang finished her preparations, she began to draw the inscription pattern. However, this time, the inscription pattern she drew was of a different attribute. This inscription pattern was of the fire attribute. The fiery red pigment looked warm and bright. As Bailey Hongzhuang drew, it flashed with a bright light. Bailey Hongzhuang was fully focused on the inscription paper in front of her. She held the inscription pen in one hand. Her movements were not light nor heavy, and she was extremely precise. The complicated totem gradually took shape under her pen. Just by looking at it, everyone could not help but feel nervous. In the process of drawing the inscription pattern, as long as there was a slight mistake, the inscription pattern would be completely ruined. Every stroke of the inscription pattern had to be extremely smooth. Only then, after the inscription pattern, the weapon's elemental energy would not have a feeling of obstruction. Not only that, the inscription pattern could not be stopped. This meant that the cultivator had to remember the entire pattern in their heart at the moment of drawing. Otherwise, if there was a pause, the inscription pattern would fail. Although they were not inscription masters, They still had some understanding of the basic situation of the inscription pattern. Every inscription master had slowly matured under countless failures. At this moment, when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang draw the inscription smoothly, they only felt that it was pleasing to the eye and did not feel the difficulty. However, the smoother Bailey Hongzhuang's performance, the more they understood how solid Bailey Hongzhuang's foundation was. If she did not try countless times, she would definitely not be able to do this. Wu Wenfeng's gaze gradually changed. He secretly confirmed that this Bailey Hongzhuang indeed had some skills. He had seen an inscription master draw an inscription pattern before. At that time, the situation was also like what was in front of him. Although he did not know what level this inscription pattern was, from the complexity of the inscription pattern, he thought that this inscription pattern would not be an ordinary one. As Bailey Hongzhuang stopped drawing, Wan Yanhan and the rest noticed that the inscription pattern flashed with a fiery red light. The entire inscription pattern suddenly flickered for a moment. This meant that the inscription pattern was successfully drawn and it was not a failure. Looking at the fiery red inscription pattern in front of her, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up into a satisfied arc. Following that, she kept the other items and handed this inscription pattern to Wu Wenfeng. "Manager Wu, this is the inscription pattern that I drew. You can take it to appraise." Her pitch-black phoenix eyes flashed with confidence. She was never arrogant and conceited, but she also did not belittle herself. Chapter 42-41. Wu Wenfeng took the inscription and glanced at it. He already had a judgment in his heart. It seemed that this inscription was most likely not bad. He didn't expect the young Bailey Hongzhuang to be such a talented inscription master. "I will take this inscription to be appraised. I'm not an inscription master, so I can't give you a definite answer now." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Her expression was still indifferent. "I'll wait for Steward Wu's response. Of course, it's fine if you choose to reject. I believe that there are many forces in the upper realm who are willing to recruit me." Wan Yanhan and Yi Haomiao were stunned when they heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words. They didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to say such a thing at this moment. They immediately looked at Wu Wenfeng. They were relieved when they saw that Wu Wenfeng wasn't unhappy about this. Wu Wenfeng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in front of him, only to see Bailey Hongzhuang looking at him with a smile that was not a smile. Her eyes were filled with confidence and certainty. That kind of confidence came from her bones. She wasn't conceited, but she was so confident that it was eye-catching. "You're very good." Wu Wenfeng chuckled. "I've always admired confident young people." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. The confident radiance on her pretty face made her not-so-beautiful face even more beautiful. It actually produced an indescribable charm. "Wan Yanhan, take Miss Bailey to rest in the Blazing Flames sect first. Wait for my answer." Wu Wenfeng turned his gaze and looked at Wan Yanhan, who was sitting opposite him. Wan Yanhan immediately stood up and cupped his hands. "Yes." As Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two walked out of the house, they noticed that not far away, there were cultivators surrounding them. It seems that everyone is very concerned about this matter. Yi Haomiao couldn't help but sigh. "I think many people think that we'll be chased out." Wan Yanhan shook his head helplessly. After such a thing happened, he was now much more indifferent to these kinds of situations. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. "However, they will soon be disappointed." "Little junior sister, are you really that confident that Steward Wu will definitely let you stay?" Wan Yanhan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang worriedly. They had a safe haven in the Raging Flame sect, but it was too dangerous for Bailey Hongzhuang to be alone. He had to find Bailey Hongzhuang a backer. Noticing the worry on Wan Yanhan's face, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly and said, "Don't worry, I have confidence. Moreover, if Steward Wu really doesn't agree, then I'll just join another faction. There's no need to worry about me." "Wan Yanhan, I feel that your worries are unnecessary. Miss Bailey is so outstanding. I believe that Steward Wu will not miss such a talent." After Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two left, Wu Wenfeng didn't stay in the house for long and immediately left the Raging Flame sect. He didn't know anything about inscription techniques. If he wanted to know what inscription patterns were like, then he had to find an inscription master. There was only one outstanding inscription master in Rome and city, and his appraisal results were the most accurate. When Wu Wenfeng arrived at Master Cheng's residence, he realized that there were many people queuing to meet him. Fortunately, with the Raging Flames sect's reputation, he was able to meet Master Cheng successfully. Chapter 42-42. Master Cheng. Wu Wenfeng was very respectful when he saw Cheng Zonghao. Although the Raging Flames sect was a powerful force in Rome and city, they still had to be courteous to an inscription master. Cheng Zonghao was a popular person in Rome and city. Many cultivators wanted to get his inscriptions. However, he had a strange personality. It wasn't an easy task to get an inscription from him. The Raging Flames sect had a certain degree of cooperation with Cheng Zonghao. However, even if they paid a generous price, they still had to look at Cheng Zonghao's face. Regarding this, he also felt very helpless. If possible, he really did not want to deal with Master Cheng. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's performance today was indeed outstanding. If the inscription drawn by Bailey Hongzhuang was really good, he would not have to beg Master Cheng for help in the future. For this possibility, he was willing to trouble him. However, before Wu Wenfeng could speak, Cheng Zonghao spoke first. "Steward Wu, if you're here to ask for an inscription, I'm very busy recently and don't have the time. I'm sorry to disappoint you." Cheng Zonghao's cold words were obviously not giving him any face. Wu Wenfeng's heart turned cold, but he still had to put on a smile on his face. "Master Cheng, I'm not here for this." Hearing this, Cheng Zonghao was slightly taken aback. Then he showed interest on his face. "Not for this? Then why are you here today?" "Master Cheng, I have an inscription in my hand, but I don't know what level it is. I hope you can help me determine it." As he spoke, Wu Wenfeng took out the inscription. However, Cheng Zonghao did not even look at it. He said directly, "I have to make you come here personally. The Raging Flame sect is really using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. Lu Jin, bring Steward Wu to appraise the level of this inscription." Immediately, a maid in a green gauze dress walked over. Seeing this, Wu Wenfeng could not help but frown. "Master Cheng, can't you take a look for me? Just leave the appraisal to the appraisal machine. Don't worry, the results will definitely be accurate. I'm very busy and have a lot of things to do," Cheng Zonghao said. Wu Wenfeng still wanted to say something, but he saw that Cheng Zonghao had already walked back into the house. It was obvious that he was too lazy to talk to him. Damn it. Wu Wenfeng's eyes turned gloomy. Even though Cheng Zonghao's inscription technique wasn't bad, he was too arrogant and Wu Wenfeng hated him. "Do you really think you're so great? How dare you be so arrogant? Damn it." Even though he was extremely angry in his heart, Wu Wenfeng still had no choice but to follow Lu Jin to go through the appraisal instrument to appraise this inscription pattern. "Steward Wu, as long as you put the inscription pattern into the appraisal device, you will know the result after a short while," Lu Jin said politely. Wu Wenfeng nodded, but the unhappiness between his brows did not dissipate. "Okay." Not long after Lu Jin put this inscription pattern into the appraisal device, the appraisal device suddenly burst out with a burst of bright light. Just when Wu Wenfeng did not understand what this meant, he noticed that Lu Jin's face was filled with astonishment. It was obvious that she saw something unbelievable. "Lu Jin, is there a problem?" Wu Wenfeng asked. "Steward Wu, this inscription pattern." Chapter 42-43. Lu Jin, just now the appraisal instrument. The person quickly spoke. Looking carefully, wasn't it Cheng Zonghao who just entered the room? "Master Cheng, I was just about to report this to you," Lu Jin respectfully said. Cheng Zonghao glanced at Lu Jin and shifted his gaze to the appraisal instrument. Then, he took out the inscription pattern from the appraisal instrument and looked at it. His eyes flashed with a trace of amazement. Wu Wenfeng stood at the side and looked at Cheng Zonghao, whose expression changed greatly. His heart was full of doubts as he didn't understand what was going on. However, he wasn't a stupid person. He was shocked and guessed that this inscription pattern was indeed very outstanding. Otherwise, the always arrogant Cheng Zonghao wouldn't reveal such an expression. After Cheng Zonghao carefully looked at the inscription pattern in his hand, he looked at Wu Wenfeng. However, his attitude was much better than before. "Manager Wu, you brought this inscription pattern?" Wu Wenfeng nodded. "That's right." "I wonder who made this inscription pattern?" Cheng Zonghao looked at Wu Wenfeng expectantly, but his heart was extremely shocked. He didn't expect to see such an outstanding inscription pattern. It really made him amazed. Noticing the change in Cheng Zonghao's expression, Wu Wenfeng's attitude was a bit cold. He clearly remembered this guy's attitude towards him before. He was also a person with a temper. Naturally, he wouldn't always give in to Cheng Zonghao. Therefore, Wu Wenfeng didn't immediately answer Cheng Zonghao's question. Instead, he asked, "Master Cheng, what's so special about this inscription pattern?" Cheng Zonghao naturally noticed Wu Wenfeng's attitude. However, at this moment, he didn't have the mood to pay attention to it. "This inscription pattern is drawn very well. It has reached the level of a master." When these words came out, Wu Wenfeng couldn't help but be stunned. His eyes flashed with a strong sense of astonishment, but he immediately covered it up. Fortunately, he covered it up very quickly and didn't let Cheng Zonghao discover any clues. He couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. However, the shock in his heart still couldn't dissipate. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang drew an inscription pattern in front of him, he only thought that her inscription pattern technique was quite good. He didn't think that her inscription pattern had reached the level of a master. With Bailey Hongzhuang's age, this kind of result was really too scary. At this moment, he finally understood why Bailey Hongzhuang was so confident. With such an identity, Bailey Hongzhuang was not afraid of not having a place to go in the upper realm. Not only were they not afraid of having nowhere to go, they were probably trying their best to recruit them. If it wasn't for Wan Yanhan, Bailey Hongzhuang probably wouldn't have joined the House of Raging Flames. Now, Bailey Hongzhuang had taken the initiative to ask to join, but he hadn't agreed yet. Wu Wenfeng's heart tightened. He hated that he could not immediately go back and recruit Bailey Hongzhuang into the House of Raging Flames. As long as the recruitment was successful, he would have made a great contribution. At least, with Bailey Hongzhuang around, they wouldn't need to beg Cheng Zonghao for inscriptions in the future. This kind of feeling was extremely unpleasant. As a member of the House of Raging Flames, it would undoubtedly be more convenient to ask Bailey Hongzhuang for help in drawing inscriptions. However, even though Wu Wenfeng's heart was set on returning home, he could only continue to pretend in front of Cheng Zonghao. However, Cheng Zonghao's next words shocked him once again. Chapter 42-44. The most important thing isn't the level of this inscription pattern, but that the drawing of this inscription pattern has almost reached perfection. Cheng Zonghao looked at the inscription pattern in his hand and couldn't hide the astonishment in his eyes. Perfection? Wu Wenfeng looked at Cheng Zonghao doubtfully, not quite understanding what he meant. He had some understanding of inscriptions, but he had never heard of anyone talking about them. Cheng Zonghao nodded slightly. "That's right, it's the perfection level. You're not an inscription master, so you might not know much about this. Actually, there will be a certain difference between inscription patterns of the same level. The more perfect the inscription pattern is drawn, the greater the effect of the inscription pattern, and the smoother the elemental energy circulation will be. However, all this while, we can only make it as close to perfection as possible, but to be able to achieve perfection, we have never seen it before. But this inscription pattern is actually able to achieve this." Cheng Zonghao's eyes shone brightly and even revealed a hint of crazed passion. "According to what I know, there was someone who was able to draw this inscription pattern a few hundred years ago. But after that, this method gradually disappeared. Until now, although we have tried our best to achieve this, we are still unable to achieve it. Manager Wu, where did you get this inscription pattern from? I believe that the person who drew this inscription pattern must be an incredible inscription master. If I can find him, I have many questions to ask him." Wu Wenfeng looked at Cheng Zonghao's agitated and anxious look, and he was stunned. God, what did he just hear? Such a young Bailey Hongzhuang actually drew an inscription pattern that even Cheng Zonghao couldn't draw? This feeling was as if he was knocked unconscious by a stone. He only felt that his brain couldn't react in time. After Cheng Zonghao finished speaking, he looked at Wu Wenfeng, only to realize that Wu Wenfeng was still in a daze, as if he didn't hear what he said at all. Manager Wu? Cheng Zonghao couldn't help but remind him. Wu Wenfeng only regained his senses when he heard this, and countless thoughts flashed through his mind. From Cheng Zonghao's expression, he could tell how persistent he was about this inscription pattern. If Cheng Zonghao knew that this inscription pattern was drawn by Bailey Hongzhuang, he almost didn't need to think about it to know that he would definitely try to poach Bailey Hongzhuang. But definitely not. He knew Cheng Zonghao's character very well. If Bailey Hongzhuang followed Cheng Zonghao, even if the D family came to find trouble, it would definitely be useless. However, in this way, the Raging Flames sect would lose a great talent. Such a young inscription master, who was even better than Cheng Zonghao, had unlimited potential. Master Cheng, I got this inscription by accident. I don't know who the owner is, Wu Wenfeng said. Hearing this, Cheng Zonghao looked at Wu Wenfeng with a tone full of doubt. He was not a stupid person. Just from Wu Wenfeng's attitude just now, he could tell that there was something wrong. Otherwise, he wouldn't have pondered for so long. Although he was shocked and came to this conclusion, Cheng Zonghao didn't expose him. Instead, he smiled and said, "By chance? Where did you get it from?" Chapter 42-45. Cheng Zonghao did not find this situation strange. After all, the Raging Flames sect was also a large force. If they could recruit this inscription master, it would solve a huge problem for them. If it was any other time, he would have stopped asking, but this discovery was too important to him, so he could only thicken his skin and continue asking. As long as he knew where the inscription master appeared, he believed that with his methods, he would be able to find the inscription master. After seeing Cheng Zonghao's attitude, Wu Wenfeng knew that Cheng Zonghao would not give up until he knew everything. However, he was also firm in his decision to not say anything. I accidentally saw it in the market. At that time, the person who introduced it said that this inscription pattern was of a very high level. When I saw it, I also felt that it was very good. After thinking about it, I still bought it. However, I am after all a layman, so I came here to ask you to help me appraise it. After saying that, Wu Wenfeng's gaze was still on Cheng Zonghao. He did not know if the lie he made up at the last minute could convince the other party. I see. Cheng Zonghao nodded his head. Steward Wu, your luck is really extraordinary. It's definitely rare to see such a treasure. Wu Wenfeng smiled. Master Cheng, if there is nothing else, I will take my leave first. Master Cheng, is there anything else? Steward Wu, I have a presumptuous request. Cheng Zonghao pondered and said. Wu Wenfeng's expression changed slightly. He vaguely guessed it in his heart. However, he pretended that he did not know anything and said, Master Cheng, if you have something to say, just say it. I wonder if you can give this inscription pattern to me? Cheng Zonghao said while looking at Wu Wenfeng's expression. Without waiting for a reply, he immediately added, I can use 3 inscriptions of the same level to exchange for it. For this inscription pattern to be able to reach such a level, it has too much research value to me. I hope that Steward Wu can part with it. Hearing this, Wu Wenfeng was surprised. He knew that it was extremely difficult to get an inscription pattern from Cheng Zonghao, but now Cheng Zonghao was willing to take out 3 inscription patterns to exchange for 1. It could be seen how much he valued this inscription pattern. If it was any other time, he would definitely agree without the slightest hesitation. But now, he couldn't agree. Since only Bailey Hongzhuang could create such an inscription, it was naturally best for the Raging Flame School. With this, the Raging Flame School would be able to rebuild their reputation. Thinking about this, Wu Wenfeng's face was filled with guilt. Master Cheng, it's not that I don't want to agree, but this inscription is so outstanding. I think I need to hand it over to the sect leader for him to decide. I'm really sorry. But Cheng Zonghao frowned. 5 inscriptions. Master Cheng, I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. The more he talked with Cheng Zonghao, the more pressure Wu Wenfeng felt. If this continued, he wouldn't know how to cover up his lie. In the next second, without waiting for Cheng Zonghao to continue speaking, Wu Wenfeng had already left quickly. Cheng Zonghao looked at Wu Wenfeng's back that was almost running away. He frowned and fell into deep thought. However, he did not chase after him. Chapter 42-46. Immediately after, Wu Wenfeng quickly walked towards the Blazing Flame School. He had to grab this opportunity to recruit Bailey Hongzhuang into the Blazing Flame School. At this moment, he even regretted not agreeing immediately. He really didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to have such shocking attainments in inscription patterns. He was really grateful to Wang Yanhan. If it wasn't for him, Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't even have the thought of joining the Blazing Flame School. With such a talent, who knows how many forces would be willing to extend an olive branch to her. Now that she had taken the initiative to join them, he was actually still considering. Thinking of this, Wu Wenfeng's forehead broke out in cold sweat. Luckily, he immediately came over to check and didn't say anything. Otherwise, he wouldn't have any chance to redeem himself. Master Cheng, I feel that Steward Wu isn't telling the truth. Lu Jin looked at Cheng Zonghao, who was deep in thought, and whispered her thoughts. Cheng Zonghao chuckled. He found such a talent, so he naturally wouldn't be willing to tell the truth. If we were to poach her, who knows how much regret he would have. Send someone to follow him and find out where he went and who he was in contact with. You must report to me immediately. Cheng Zonghao narrowed his eyes. I'm afraid such a powerful inscription master isn't an ordinary person. But why haven't I heard of him before? This was what he couldn't understand the most. With the other party's inscription technique, he must be an extremely famous person. But why hadn't he heard of such a person before? Unless he's from a large force. But if that's the case, neither I nor the Blazing Flame School can successfully recruit him. Why is Wu Wenfeng being so secretive? Cheng Zonghao fiddled with his fingers. His eyes were covered with a layer of mist, making it hard for others to understand. Bailey Hongzhuang followed Wang Yanhan and Lu Jin to their residence. With one look, she realized that the environment here was very good. The cultivator's residence was very comfortable and couldn't be picky. Although this place is different from my home, I have to say that living here is very comfortable. The beds and blankets here are all of the best quality. As a disciple of the Raging Flame School, this treatment is well known. Wang Yanhan smiled as he introduced the place to Bailey Hongzhuang. Back then, he had joined the House of Raging Flames because he had heard that the treatment here was good enough for cultivators to develop. Indeed. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. Living here should be very comfortable. It would be best if you could join us. We can temporarily cultivate here in peace and increase our strength. Little junior sister, your cultivation talent is so outstanding. I believe that with these cultivation resources, your progress will be very fast. Don't worry, I will definitely stay here. Bailey Hongzhuang sat down at the side. Sure enough, the bed was very soft and the material was also very good. Miss Bailey, seeing how confident you are, I don't think there's any need to worry. Yi Haomiao poured himself a cup of tea and drank it in one gulp. His face revealed a relaxed expression. He was originally a little worried, but now that the main character was so confident, he felt that Bailey Hongzhuang must have something she could rely on. Chapter 42-47. So many things had happened today. Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao both felt very tired and very nervous. Although they relaxed a little after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, they were still nervous. They were worried about what decision Steward Wu would make. However, after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's calm appearance, they couldn't help but sigh. Bailey Hongzhuang's mental fortitude was extraordinary. She could still remain so calm after going through so many things. Not long after, there was a knock on the door. Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao stood up almost immediately. Wang Yanhan even opened the door immediately. As expected, Wu Wenfeng's figure appeared in their line of sight. After seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was still in the room, Wu Wenfeng couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, she was still in the room. He could finally put down his worried heart. A glimmer of light flashed across Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes. The corners of her lips curled up slightly. It seemed that her judgment was right. Steward Wu. Wang Yanhan bowed and asked, "May I know if Steward Wu has made a decision?" After speaking, Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao looked at Wu Wenfeng nervously. They only wanted to know what decision Wu Wenfeng would make. If Wu Wenfeng refused, they had already made plans to leave together. No matter what, They couldn't let Bailey Hongzhuang be in danger alone. I agree, Wu Wenfeng said. Wan Yanhan and Yi Haomiao were momentarily stunned when they heard Wu Wenfeng's words. Soon after, the two of them revealed joyous smiles. Really? Wu Wenfeng nodded affirmatively. Of course. I knew this guy would definitely agree. No matter which force let go of a talent like Master, they would feel heartache. Xiao He jumped up. Her face was full of confidence and pride. In fact, they had never worried about this point. It was just that Wan Yanhan and Yi Haomiao didn't understand Master's strength well enough. That was why they were so worried. That's right. They would be fools if they refused. That's great. Wan Yanhan and Yi Haomiao also breathed a sigh of relief. They turned around and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in surprise. From now on, they would be martial siblings. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled as well. Whether or not she could stay in the sect of flames was not important to her. However, she felt extremely fortunate to be able to stay with Wan Yanhan and Jian Qin, because these two people made him feel warm. Wu Wenfeng walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. His usually serious face revealed a smile at this moment, and his aura was no longer as high and mighty as before. Miss Bailey, I didn't expect your inscription technique to be so outstanding. I was blind before. Wu Wenfeng was also a flexible person. After knowing the true value of Bailey Hongzhuang, he knew what kind of attitude he should use to treat her. If Bailey Hongzhuang didn't join the sect of flames, but as an inscription master, he would have to treat her with respect. This was the difference between them. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Steward Wu doesn't understand inscription technique. It's normal that you don't know this. Chapter 42-48. Wan Yanhan and Yi Haomiao noticed the huge change in Wu Wenfeng's attitude towards Bailey Hongzhuang. They couldn't help but feel astonished. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's extremely calm appearance, they suddenly understood. It seemed that they had underestimated Bailey Hongzhuang. Wan Yanhan, it seems that Miss Bailey's inscription technique is extraordinary. Steward Wu treats her so differently. It must be because the inscription just now is extraordinary. Yi Haomiao lowered his voice. He had been in the Raging Flames sect for more than a year. Although Steward Wu wasn't a person who liked to put on airs, this was the first time he had seen such an attitude. It was absolutely impossible that there wasn't a problem. Wan Yanhan nodded slightly. No wonder junior sister has always been so confident. I finally understand. In my opinion, Steward Wu's attitude has changed too much. I'm afraid what Miss Bailey said before was true. She has many places to go in the upper realm. She doesn't have to worry about having nowhere to go. Yi Haomiao's eyes flashed with astonishment. Inscriptionists are completely different from ordinary cultivators like us. It's already very difficult for us to join the Raging Flames sect. However, inscriptionists are people that any force would take the initiative to recruit. Junior sister chose to join the Raging Flames sect because of us. Wan Yanhan sighed faintly. No wonder Bailey Hongzhuang had been very hesitant when he tried to recruit her. It turned out that this was the problem. Miss Bailey, I just learned that your inscription technique has reached the level of a master. I wonder if you're joining the Raging Flames sect as a master or a cultivator. Your status is so honorable. Why don't you directly become an inscription master of our Raging Flames sect? Steward Wu smiled. Status had always had nothing to do with age. Although Bailey Hongzhuang was young, her inscription technique had already reached such a level that it was enough for everyone to call her a master. No matter where she was, she should be respected by everyone. As Steward Wu's voice fell, Yi Haomiao almost choked. Cough, cough, cough. Bailey Hongzhuang and Wu Wenfeng couldn't help but look at Yi Haomiao. However, Yi Haomiao waved his hand, indicating for everyone to ignore him. Steward Wu turned around and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang again, waiting for her answer. Thank you for your kind intentions, Steward Wu. However, I will join as a cultivator. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Her status as an inscriptionist could indeed raise her status, but what she wanted more was to improve her strength. If he joined as an inscription master, his treatment would naturally be better, but if he wanted to cultivate with everyone, it would not be convenient. Moreover, she also didn't wish for there to be such a separation between her and Wan Yanhan. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's answer, Wu Wenfeng couldn't help but be slightly stunned. A trace of astonishment flashed across his eyes. He really couldn't imagine that Bailey Hongzhuang would make such a decision. Since Miss Bailey is so insistent, I won't say anything more. However, don't worry. Although you will join as a cultivator, we all know your identity. Therefore, you will still enjoy the treatment of a master. Thank you, Steward Wu. Bailey Hongzhuang accepted with a smile. Since there were such benefits, she naturally wouldn't reject it. Chapter 42-49. Miss Bailey, you're too polite. It's our honor to be able to invite you back. Don't worry, I'll arrange for your accommodation immediately. I'll also get someone to prepare the things you need. Thank you, Manager Wu. Bailey Hongzhuang cupped her hands. I'd like to stay somewhere close to senior brother Wan Yen. No problem. Wu Wenfeng nodded. This was a small matter that could be solved with just a word. Miss Bailey, there's something else I hope you can agree to. Go ahead, Manager Wu. Inscriptions have always been something that cultivators need. However, there's only one inscription master in the entire Rong and city. The inscriptions drawn by normal inscription masters aren't of much help to cultivators in our Raging Flame sect. Your inscription skills have already reached the level of a master. I hope you can help draw some inscriptions from time to time. Of course, that's only when you're free. Furthermore, we'll definitely reward you handsomely. Wu Wenfeng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with anticipation. This was the most troublesome matter for the Raging Flames sect recently. Inscriptions were the best reward for cultivators. However, every time they wanted to get a few inscriptions from Cheng Zonghao, not only did they have to pay a high reward, they might not even succeed. This was something that they had always been troubled by. If Bailey Hongzhuang agreed, then their problem would be solved. Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a moment. It seemed like she had underestimated the attraction of inscriptions to the Raging Flame sect. Manager Wu's heart was also in his mouth. Whether or not he could contribute depended on whether Bailey Hongzhuang agreed or not. Sure. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, but it's only limited to a certain range. My main focus is on cultivation. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang agreed, Wu Wenfeng's face instantly revealed a happy smile. He nodded. No problem. No problem, it definitely won't affect your cultivation. That's good. Bailey Hongzhuang smirked. She had to contact someone to draw the inscription on a daily basis anyway. She was just conveniently selling the inscription to the Raging Flame sect. It wasn't a bad idea. Alright, I happen to have a few inscription patterns here. I wonder if Manager Wu is interested? Bailey Hongzhuang took out a few inscription patterns from her Qiankuan bag. These were the inscription patterns that she had drawn during her practice. At that time, in order to help Wan Yanhan draw the most suitable inscription pattern for him, she also studied for a period of time. During this period of time, she drew some inscription patterns which were not bad. The moment he saw the inscription on Bailey Hongzhuang's hand, Wu Wenfeng's eyes lit up and he immediately said, Of course. Of course I am. If the D family comes looking for trouble, Bailey Hongzhuang stretched out her voice, looking at Wu Wenfeng in front of her. Wu Wenfeng immediately understood. Miss Bailey, don't worry. As long as you are in the Raging Flame sect, I can guarantee that the D family will not dare to find trouble with you. Although the D family has a certain amount of power in their region, in Rong and City, they are no match for the Raging Flame sect. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.